Psalm 2 is a royal enthronement song. It was probably used to celebrate the coronation of Israel's kings, who were appointed by God to lead Israel in the way of righteousness. Now the psalmist is baffled because the rulers of other nations are trying to topple this kingdom. So they're banding together against God and his anointed, or Messiah, who, as God's representative, would enjoy a special relationship with God if he submitted to God's instruction, or Torah. And what's God's reaction to the rulers plotting? He laughs and scoffs at their foolishness. God's kingdom isn't threatened by the kingdoms of this world. God has installed his ruler above his people, giving him the special status of son. And all the nations are his inheritance, because all things ultimately belong to the Creator. He then warns the kings to be careful about how they respond to God's rule. They shouldn't be so arrogant, because God's anointed will shatter the kingdoms of this world like pottery. Instead, these kings should revere God and pay homage to the Son, what the psalmist calls taking refuge in him. Now, the generic title Messiah, or Son of God, took on special meaning over time. Israel had its share of evil and righteous kings, but ultimately none of them lived up to God's ideal of sinless perfection and obedience. But long after the monarchy dissolved, Israel continued using this psalm in its liturgy because it represented the hope of the Messiah, a truly just and righteous king who would usher God's kingdom into the world. The good news of the Gospels is that the Messiah broke into the world in the person of Jesus, and we experience God's blessings when we take refuge in him. And that involves turning away from our rebellion and conspiracy and bowing our knee to the reign of Christ. In his death and resurrection, he smashed the powers of sin like a clay pot so that we can be remade and experience God's kingdom blessing. Now, unfortunately, world leaders continue in this rebellion when they use their power to exploit and oppress. So followers of Jesus, as citizens of God's kingdom, should make it a priority to advocate for victims of these systems of death, the marginalized and the powerless. And our ultimate hope is not in legislature or political victories, but in the truly transformative power of God that is at work in the world today. And we know that one day there will be ultimate justice when Christ returns in final victory, and the powers that conquer and kill will finally be defeated. In the meantime, we preview God's reign in the new creation as loving servants and bold witnesses to his resurrection power.